everyone, welcome or welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Nina. I hope you're doing fantastically well. And today I wanted to quickly talk about something that has probably been one of the biggest struggles of my entire adult life, which is dealing with chronic fear-based thinking, or as some people call it, mental fear. And because I just wrestled with this for so many years, it's a behavior that I can easily recognize in other people. And when I do, I just feel such empathy because I know the serious impact it can have in our life and the amount of suffering it can cause us. But I also know firsthand that this is something that we can successfully overcome. Now, this is a topic that I'm going to be creating an entire series about because I firmly believe that when we can learn to let go of fear-based thinking, there are very few things that we could do that would transform our life this significantly. It truly changes absolutely everything. So today I wanted to focus on what this type of thinking is, where it comes from, how it affects the different aspects of our life, and how we can identify when we are falling prey to it. So let's start by discussing what we're really talking about here. So fear-based thinking happens when instead of having clear and rational thoughts about a situation, we habitually view all situations through a lens of fear and potential threat. We stop being able to think objectively and we kind of shift to always scanning situations for potential dangers, but not in a way that is constructive or reasonable. It goes well beyond a healthy concern or logical caution. We start to convince ourselves that there are dangers that don't actually exist, or we distort the situation in our mind to make it seem a lot scarier than it actually is. It really becomes a mental habit, and it's one that makes us feel like we are perpetually living in some level of crisis mode at all times, which of course is both mentally and physically exhausting. And I'm sure it's not the way that most of us would prefer to think or prefer to live, yet so many of us do. So why is that the case? Well, unfortunately for most of us, it really is learned behavior. So either we were conditioned to have a fear-based mindset through receiving repeated messages that the world is a scary place by our caregivers or other influential aspects of our upbringing, such as media or our culture, or it's a response to trauma or simply the perception that we really have endured a lot of truly terrifying things. And when we fail to process and really move past these experiences, it's like we're always living in these moments. We get stuck in a pattern of continuously thinking about what happened or what could happen in the future. And because of this, the fear response just continues and continues with no end in sight, which makes it very difficult for us to enjoy our life because we're always looking over our shoulder or catastrophizing even the most benign of situations. And once creating mental fear really does become a habit, instead of seeking out fulfillment and happiness in our life, we usually are reduced to just seeking out relief from not having the absolutely terrible things that we think about come into fruition. And without realizing it, it starts to impact every single aspect of our life, including how we even take in information. It narrows our focus, it changes our behavior, and it really starts to rearrange our priorities. In fact, a lot of times it really shifts us away from the things that are truly meaningful for us because our main priority becomes seeking security and certainty and comfort all the time. So we begin to really start to avoid anything that makes us feel uncomfortable. We want to control everything. And once we try to do that, it makes it very difficult for us to expand or grow as a person because we're always living in crisis mode. It really affects our judgment and also our ability to create the life that we would really want to be living. So how then can we tell if we personally tend to struggle with having fear-based thoughts? Well, it's usually something that we can feel in our entire body. So for example, if our immediate response to any given situation tends to be getting flooded with negative emotions before we even really understand what is going on, or experiencing tension or lightheadedness or racing heartbeat or anything else that we would associate with a fear-based response to a tangible threat, then chances are we tend to struggle with creating mental fear. Another sign can be always looking for the bad in situations, trying to find the flaw, trying to find the catch, trying to find the threat that is there. And again, not to a rational or healthy degree, but really being determined to find whatever is dangerous, even in situations that there is absolutely no danger or threat whatsoever. It can also show up in our speech or our behavior, especially when we're talking about something that is completely new. We will perceive it to be a threat because it is new. So we want to immediately dismiss it or shut it down, or we want to shut down the perceptions of others about this situation because we want to defend our negative stance about the event or the situation. But the overarching theme is that we experience the same psychological and physiological distress that we would be experiencing if we were in actual danger, but we experience this on a daily basis. But if this is something that we identify as a pattern of behavior that we are stuck in, before we get all angry at ourselves and judgmental for, getting stuck in this pattern of behavior, we have to be self-compassionate and understand on some level it really does make sense. Many times this response is an attempt to try to protect ourselves or to prevent future suffering. We think that if we can just be really alert and if we can sniff out enough potential dangers, then we'll be able to save ourselves from experiencing the same traumas that we experienced in the past. So again, on paper, it really does make a lot of sense. But unfortunately, in practice, we end up creating an incredible amount of suffering for ourselves, and we end up living in a perpetual state of fear. And like I said, I will be creating an entire series on how we can really address this situation. But really, the first step in any of this is acknowledging that we are struggling with it and really noticing the behavior when it occurs. We can also begin to ask ourselves what this type of thinking is really costing us. What would our life be like if we could finally let go of fear-based thinking? And when we are able to be honest with ourselves in that way, it's really the key to changing just about everything in our life, including fear-based thinking. And even though we are going to be talking about specific strategies, before any of that, please get started by checking out the playlist I'm going to put in the description box below that talks about how we can kind of manage these uncomfortable feelings and this fear while we are working towards finally overcoming this mindset forever. So as always, I truly hope that you found today's video to be helpful. If you did, please like it, share it, and definitely become a subscriber. If you are not one already, I would absolutely love it if you stayed connected. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I hope the rest of your day is extraordinary.